This illustrates the stack program. This stack program is implemented using linked lists. The linked lists used in this program are singly linked lists. As usual, we start at main. Two character variables, value and what, are declared. Then the head pointer. Then the tail pointer. It calls the same init.ll node that we saw before in the linked list program to create the head node. So it declares the temp pointer. And allocates the memory for the node. Sets the key value. And nullifies the next pointer. Then it returns the address of the new node to the head pointer. Now it does the same for the tail node. The declaration of temp. The allocation of the memory. The assignment of the key value. Nullifying the next pointer. Returning the address to the tail pointer. Point the next pointer of the head node to the tail to complete the empty stack. Now we loop, asking the user to enter push, pop, or end. This while loop actually just keeps reading until the user types something that is not a space or tab or carriage return. What was typed was a character, so we subtract the ASCII value of 0 to turn it into an integer. The user had typed 1, which means push, so we ask the user what they want to push. Again we keep reading until the user types something which is not a space or tab or carriage return. Then we call the push function to push that into the stack which is pointed to by the head pointer. The push then declares a temp pointer to store the new node. And calls init.ll node to create that node. Init.ll node does its usual of declaring a temp pointer. Note that this is a different memory location from the temp in push. It then allocates the memory for the node. And inserts the value into the key. And sets the next pointer to null. And returns that address to the temp in push. Then we connect temp's next pointer to what head's next pointer is pointing to. And point head's next pointer back to temp. This means that we now have a new node in the stack, as you can see from the VP diagram. Now it prints that the character was pushed. And continues looping until the user types 0. So since the user did not type 0, we go back to the top and ask the user again. And read another command from the user. This time the user typed 1 again, which means push. So we ask the user what they want to push. And the user types a character. So we call the push function to add that character to the stack. Which then uses a temp pointer. To receive the results of the call to init.ll node. Which then declares its own temp pointer. And allocates the memory. And puts the value into the key. And null in the next pointer. And returns the address to the temp in push. And then temp arrow next is pointed to head arrow next. And head arrow next is pointed to the new node at temp. Then we return to the main program. And print that we pushed the new character. So since it's not 0 yet, we ask the user again. And this time the user told it to pop. So the switch goes to case pop. Which then checks to see if the stack is empty or not. By seeing if the head node's next pointer is pointing to tail. Since it's not, we return 0, which means false. So back in the main program, it goes ahead to call pop. Which declares a temp pointer. And a character variable. And retrieves the key from the node at current's next pointer. Then it points the temp pointer at that same node. And moves the currents next to the next node. Then we release the memory of the node which we want to remove from the stack, so that the memory can be reused and not wasted. It then returns the value we saved earlier from that node's key to the main, which stores it in the variable value. And prints it. Since the user's choice isn't 0, we loop back and ask the user again. And the user types 2. Which means pop. So we check to see if the stack is empty. And since it is not, it returns 0, which means false. So the main program now calls pop. Which uses a temp pointer. And a character variable val. and stores the key in the node pointed to by the current's next pointer. Then uses temp to keep track of that node, and makes current skip that node. Then it disposes of the node, freeing its memory, and returns the value of the key back to the value variable in main. Main then prints the value, and repeats the while loop, asking the user for the next task. The user types 2 again, which means pop. So it checks to see if the stack is empty. And the head's next pointer is already pointing to the tail, so it is. So it prints stack empty, and goes around for the loop again. So it asks the user again what to do. And the user types 0, which means end. So it doesn't loop again, and says program finished.